Hey guys, it's Alexandra. Today we're going to be talking with John, who is a single dad to special needs children and an adoption advocate. He is going to be talking about the misconceptions of foster care, the challenges and rewards of raising special needs children. I think he is incredibly inspiring. I hope that you will stay tuned to learn more about that lifestyle, and I hope that you will subscribe for more videos. All right, thank you so much.
My ex-wife and I had an emergency receiving foster home. That means, they'd bring you children like in the middle of the night when something happened. Jake's birth mom was 12 years old when she got pregnant. Jake was a shaken baby, so they took him away from her, and he came through our house. Hannah, her birth mom had kind of a rough past. She went to prison for armed robbery. But anyhow, they came through our foster home, and we adopted them. It's the best decision I ever made in my life.
4 children, 3 of them are adopted. My middle daughter is my bio child. All the rest of my kids are adopted. And my ex-wife now wanted to adopt children. And I thought the best way to do that would be to foster children, because there's a really need for children to go to families that can care for them. And do things like that. And then what you can do is when you're getting certified to be a foster home, you can also get certified to adopt at exactly the same time. So it was a single process, and that seemed like the best way to do it, plus provide a needed service at the time. So we did that, and we fostered regular ed children, not special needs children. And as we did it longer, there was a dire need to foster special needs kids. So we got additional, qualifications and started fostering special needs children. And then we became an emergency receiving home, where 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, they can just show up, call you and say, hey, I'm bringing a kid to your house right now. And that's how we ended up getting Jake and Hannah. Both Jake and Hannah, who are my youngest children, came to me through the emergency receiving home process. Hannah came early in the morning, like 7 or so, and Jake came pretty much the middle of the night. A year apart, they came to our house. They were both 3 months old. And Jacob, his birth mom, I don't know if you want to know anything about that.
Yeah, sure.
Came from. Jake's birth mom was 13 years old when she delivered, 12 years she conceived him. She was a special needs child who had been hanging around with a street gang. And that's how she ended up getting pregnant. Excuse me. So Jacob was a shaken baby. The little girl didn't know anything about taking care of a child. And she was in a placement home, like a lockdown facility. And Jake wouldn't stop fussing and crying. So she started shaking him really bad enough that they had to take him to the emergency room. And that's when they took him away from her and placed him in our home. And her and her family decided that it was best to put him up for adoption. So we adopted Jacob, and Jake has autism. At the time, we didn't know he had autism. He was just a quiet baby that never smiled. But as you get older, you start to see the signs and symptoms, and then he got diagnosed. About a year later, Hannah came into our home, and she had just had her shunt revised. She has hydrocephalus, and what that is the fluid in your brain just continues to build. Your body naturally has these little valves that vent it and drain it off, but hers weren't working. So what happened is, in utero, her head became the size of a full-grown adult head on a baby body. And she had what's called end-stage hydrocephalus, which means that's right before it's going to be fatal. And her birth mom delivered her, had no prenatal care, delivered her emergency C-section at I think it was Maricopa County Medical Center. She had been flown in from way out east in the state. And anyhow, after Hannah's shunt, which is that little tube that drains the fluid from her brain into her abdomen so it doesn't continue to build, after her revision, which means they put it in and it didn't work, so they had to replace it. Her birth mom, there's 2 different stories here. One of them is from CPS, which is Child Protective Services here in Arizona. I think they're called something else now. excuse me, says that that her birth mom abandoned her at a babysitter's house. Just said, here's a bottle. When it's empty, if she fusses, just let her keep it, and that's it. And then left and never came back. Uh, the birth mom story, I've actually gotten to know her, years later, is that CPS talked her into giving up her child. So she gave her to the couple as an intermediary to give her to CPS. But either way, Hannah came to our home as a newly revised shunt placement. Hannah was placed with us, and her mom disappeared. Well, years later, I found out that her mom had been arrested and put in prison for armed robbery. So that's how she disappeared. Now her mom has an amazing life. She's an awesome person. She's one of my Facebook friends. I've met her in person. She hasn't met Hannah yet, but the reason for that isn't that she can't or doesn't want to. It's just logistically it hasn't worked out. She lives, hundreds of miles away.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we ended up getting Jake and Hannah.
Wow. That's incredible. I think, there's got to be so many challenges and rewards, both that come with doing what you do. What would you say are some of the hardest parts and some of the, best and most rewarding parts of, being a father in the unique way that you are?
Well, doing it alone is the hardest part. Absolutely.
Anything that you would want people to know about fostering that might be a little bit misrepresented or misunderstood?
Well, I know people feel a lot that the system is a horrible system, that the foster parents are awful people,
Right.
that, that it's a horrendous train wreck and it's horrible for people. And those are the stories you hear. Those are the ones you pay attention to. It's like anything. When you hear about something that's horribly bad and awful, you automatically associate everything having to do with that one incident. And there are millions of people in foster care. There are millions of regular ed kids, special ed kids. There are millions of people who need help that are in foster care that are thriving and doing well.
Mm-hmm.
And those aren't the ones that make good stories.
That's a good point. I think, is that part of what inspired you to share your life online? And
Absolutely.
TikToks and stuff?
Yeah, I advocate for foster care, for adoptive parenting, and for special needs kids, and for kindness. And people don't understand special needs children at all. They see them in the store. Excuse me. They see them in the store, and most people are stuck because they want to know more, but who do you ask? Walking up to a strange family and saying, "Hey, can you tell me about your daughter?" That's not going to fly. That's uncomfortable for everybody involved. Yeah. So, the reason I started doing the TikToks was to let people know, we're just a family. We have fun, we play, we do things, we travel, and we have, challenges and special needs. And that's the best way to get a dialogue going with people about, hey, there have been a lot of people that have contacted me through comments or message. What's it called? What are the messages called?
Just DMs.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
DMs where they have been inspired to foster or adopt particularly special needs kids based on what they've seen. And that's awesome. I love that. If somebody is qualified and has the disposition and can do it, that's what I want to see. So that's kind of where we started doing it. At first, it was just, here's my life. And then as people started taking a notice and interacting with this, I realized that there's a big hole in the knowledge of the general public about, you adopt children, you adopt special needs children. What's going on? How is it you do? Tell me about that. Is kind of what the feeling that I'm getting. And there's a huge interest in it. I think we've gone over, I think we're over 100,000, friends on TikTok now, which is surprising. I thought I'd get 200-300 people. When I went over 1,000, I went, wow, this is awesome, and then 5,000, and as it built, I just couldn't believe the interest that there was in Jake and Hannah, and their journey and what they're up to, and how they're getting better, because then they are getting better every day. I mean, I don't see it on the scale that somebody in TikTok does, because they don't see Hannah trying to drink from a cup for 8 years.
Right.
They see Hannah in that one little, was it 60-second video, able to get a little bit of water in her mouth. And they're like, oh, that's nice. Well, it took 8 years to get there. They don't see that part. And as I'm doing it, I know she gets a drop or two here, a drop or two there, until she's getting baby sips. And hopefully that builds up to something where she can actually drink.
Yeah.
So it works both ways. It lets me document where we started and how we're going. A good example is in August, she can only do 67 steps.
Mm-hmm.
We did a half a mile in, I think it was January, I posted it. And that's how far she came in just that bit. And the reason for the difference is I thought that her rehabilitation worker had been actually working on her with walking. And it turns out that's not what was going on. They were just playing. So Hannah wasn't getting stronger. She was enjoying the company, but wasn't actually getting the work in. And that's the difference that actually doing the work would have done 8 years ago.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's something where it takes that relationship of a child and a parent. You hear, I'm changing their life, but they're also changing my life. It's that, but I feel like it's so amplified. Like,
absolutely is.
Do you feel like you have a close bond with them because of the struggles that you go through together?
I think we are closer as a special ed family, special family, than the majority of regular families, because you get distracted. Your children don't need you for X, Y, Z. You start to, as they get older, you start to drift apart. And with us, we're getting closer and more solid. I see things new and different every single day through Hannah and Jacob. Particularly Hannah, but also with Jacob. He has autism and he sees the world differently than anybody does. And it's like rediscovering the planet all over for me. People say that they're lucky to have me, but that's not the case at all. My life is so much better. Excuse me. That's my life is so much better than it was before Jake and Hannah came into it. So I'm really the lucky one.
And what are some things that you guys are looking forward to doing, and some milestones that, have been happening in your lives?
Well, Hannah's the easy one to talk about, but Jacob just got a job. And from the time that he was little, I was always told that's probably never going to happen. Mm-hmm. That he's probably just going to be, somebody who sits in the basement. We don't have a basement, but sits in the basement and plays video games, and that's going to be his life. Well, I was determined that wasn't going to happen. Not because I think that everybody should have to work, but working is good for you. You get that relationship, you get that responsibility, you get that more outside of you perspective when you are interacting in a working environment. So Jake and I worked really hard at interviews and interacting with people and being dedicated and always doing what you say, keeping your word. And in Arizona, I'm sorry, what state are you in?
I'm in Maryland.
Maryland. And the things are probably different here than they are there, at least. But we have an agency here that works with special needs kids to get them their jobs. And then they go to the interview with them, and then they go to the first few days, or they spend all the working time with them. And we didn't use any of that. We worked really hard. Prior to Jacob going into the restaurant for his interview, we sat in the parking lot and talked about, here's how an interview goes. This is the way things they're going to talk to you. So don't be surprised when they ask you, questions that aren't work related, because they want to get to know you. So he went in there and he got the job all on his own. There was no state worker saying there, sitting there offering incentives and saying this is a special needs kid. Obviously, we had to disclose he has autism because of his view and his dislike for loud noises and stuff like that. So there's actually a place in their employment application that asks if you have special needs. And you don't have to disclose it, but it's best to, because when he's standing right on top of somebody talking to him, he's not being a jerk, he's being autistic.
Right.
So it's a great milestone. And he's had that job since Christmas, this last Christmas, and he's been doing really well. And like I said, her walking half a mile is amazing. That's a long time for my fat body. So she's doing really well. In addition, for the first time ever, she was able to walk about 30 feet or so on her own. And she's never done that in her whole life. She's 16. She's never done that before. And yeah, it was 30 feet and it was kind of clumsy, but you know what? She did it. And that's a huge milestone. When she got out of the hospital after her stroke and in a coma, she could only move her eyes. She couldn't move anything else. Everything was just completely limp. She couldn't support her head, nothing. And to go from that to walking on your own, that's huge.
Absolutely. And I think, so it's so easy to say this is what they did and they're so strong and they made all of these leaps and they're doing so well.
They did.
That's because of you. So don't forget that. I know that it's
because of them. I mean, I facilitated it, I guided it, but it is 100% them. If Hannah wasn't such a tough, hardworking, determined little girl, she wouldn't be where she is, no matter how much I harangue her and push her and, get her to move, it's her. If Jake wasn't determined to nail that interview and work every day really hard, he wouldn't have that job. I helped them. Yes, I did help them. I get, let's say, a third of the credit for where they are, and they get 66% because, and more in Hannah's case, because she pushes herself even far. Today is a good example. We walk almost every single day, and we have this quarter-mile route laid out, because a quarter mile is a good before school kind of a walk. And some days, we'll push and try and do the big half mile, but mostly it's that quarter-mile walk. And we have these stops where in Arizona, it gets hot even at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's probably 85, 90 degrees by then. So we have these stops in the shade, and we'll walk maybe 100 feet. And then she doesn't sit down, but she'll rest in her walker. Mm-hmm. We'll hug and I'll talk with her, and, so we'll sing songs. And then we'll walk to another shaded spot, and then we'll walk to another shaded spot, and then we'll turn around and do the same in reverse. And today she started at the front door and she went all the way to the return point in one span, which she's never done before. Is amazing, all on her own. She's like, I got this. And I'm like, do you want it? And she just kept charging. I'm like, okay. So we get all the way to the turnaround point. We rest in the shade and we sing songs, and, I give her hugs and clap, and, I hold her a little bit, and then we take off, and she walked all the way back. The first time I was amazed, because that is for Hannah, that's an eighth of a mile, right?
Wow.
And when she could in August only do 67 steps, there's the contrast for you. And that's Hannah.
That's incredible. Do you ever have moments of frustration?
Oh yeah. Every parent does.
Yeah.
And it's amplified when you're a special needs parent, because even the things we consider simple are challenging for them. Mm-hmm. There are times where we have to go, we're late for a doctor's appointment, we're late for something, and I need to get Hannah's hair done, and she's just not into it. I don't know if you saw the hair brushing video, but it takes me a good half an hour to brush her hair. And I did that video. I think it was back then I could only do a 60-second TikTok. Mm-hmm. So fast forwarded it and then double speeded it again, and then cut it out so that it would fit. And if you saw that video, she spends a lot of time taking her hands and going like this or going like this, or reaching up, trying to play with me and stuff like that. And it's not because she's being mean. It's not because it's because she wants to help. She wants to interact. And doing something with her, so she wants to do it with you. And also, she likes to scratch her head. So you'll just get ready to put the hair tie or the scrunchie in, and she'll go,
Ah.
and then you got to start all over again. So that's very frustrating whenever you're late. And there have been times that I've been short with her and I feel like garbage. Hannah, we need to do this now, kind of a thing, you know? And she doesn't know that she's not doing that, you know, to delay us, but it's frustrating. And, you know, like any parent, you get short, you're like, hey, we need to go, you know? And you feel like garbage afterwards, you know, because you look back and you're like, she was just playing. So yeah, I get frustrated. I get people are like, oh, you're so nice all the time. You're so sweet all the time. And nobody is sweet all the time. I get upset. I get annoyed, same as everybody else does. I just don't happen to make a TikTok about being annoyed.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
people cut you off in traffic. I yell at them, same as everybody else does. But I try and recover from it really quickly and go back to having a good day. And I think that's the part that people are really appreciative of, is they want to know how to get away from the being annoyed back into the having a good day part. And that part, I like to think I'm pretty good at.
Yes. Have you been able to connect with other people that have special needs children and, you know, share your insight with them? I'm sure people
Oh
have
yeah,
seen your videos and been like, oh my gosh, I never thought of doing that with my child. I'll try that.
yeah, yeah, and it works both ways. Uh, if you read my comments, that it's just full of parents of special needs kids, you know, or special needs people themselves. I'm an adult with cerebral palsy. I'm an adult with, cortical vision impairment, which is Hannah's vision challenge. And they talk about, you know, their life and how they do things, which is great for me because I can't ask Hannah, hey, when you're shaking really bad, does that hurt? Because she can't tell me.
Yeah.
And these people are able to tell me what or what we think she feels like when she's doing those things, which is great for me, you know, because I can't ask her. So yeah, we interact a lot. If you look at my comment section, it's just full of special needs parents and special needs people and kids and stuff talking about, hey, I'm going to try this, or have you thought of doing that? One of the things that I was really happy for people to see is those shoes that Hannah has. They're called Billy shoes, and the whole top of them zips open so that if you have a AFO, a brace, you can just put your foot in there and zip the shoe closed, and you're done. And there, believe me, I went through lots of shoes trying to find something that worked. And there are people that they're like, I didn't even know these existed. This is amazing, and it makes their life so much easier because when you have to force a shoe open to get a brace in it, it takes forever to put your shoes on.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of done with going out.
Right.
So makes things so much easier for everybody that I got lots of comments, not just on that little video, but when they see Hannah walking in them. Those are, you know, they recognize the brand of shoes because you can see the zipper right along the top edge of them. And we share, you know, things that work for us or things that don't work for us. You know, I tried that or those and it didn't work for us. And somebody else will be like, no, I did, but here's what I did different. And then you'll find that, oh, that does work, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like the telephone game with special needs stuff, you know, where we have been able to discuss what we're doing different. Or, you know, I'm lucky that I retired in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
X left in 2010. So I have no idea how I could have been able to care for Jake and Hannah if I was working 88 hours or so a week. I don't know how I could have been able to take care of them if I was still working.
Yeah.
So that's a blessing. And then because I'm retired, I get to do their therapies and all, you know, I get to extend their therapy sessions, and, you know, the therapist will leave and I'll just keep doing what they're doing. So they get to make those improvements. And a lot of parents will see that and be like, you know, if I spend an extra, you know, whatever it is, I could see these gains, because you get the mindset of, okay, we did therapy. Now we go home and we do a little bit. And then, you know, we try and keep it up during the week, because they have really busy lives. But when they see the huge gains that Hannah can make, because we're doing kind of an intense version of therapy, it kind of encourages people to, you know, put in a little bit extra here, even though they are worn out. They've done a full-time job. They're taking care of the kids full time. They're just frazzled, but they see the benefit and they're like, that's the little carrot on the stick that, you know what, I can add an extra half hour. I can add an extra 45 minutes to get this to improve his or her life this much. That's way worth it. And
Mhm.
they just push through the pain, so to speak, and work more, which I think is awesome. It's awesome. Like I said, I don't know how I would have been able to do it being alone, working full time, taking care of two special needs kids. I don't know.
Yeah, so obviously, you have this great connection with people with special needs or parents of special needs children. But as far as just like people who can't directly relate to you, what do you hope that they will learn from the videos that you post about your life?
Well, what I'm seeing and what they're telling me they're learning is that special needs kids aren't stuck in a box.
Mhm.
Their life is fluid and dynamic and changes. That just because, excuse me, just because they can't drink out of a cup today doesn't mean that's true in a month or 2 months or 8 years. And the little tiny bitty improvements that they see add up to be huge. And people in general think, or like the ones that follow us thought, that, oh, that poor girl has CP, that poor girl is blind, that poor girl, such and such. What a sad life. That's not the case at all. Hannah's life is awesome. I had somebody leave a comment saying something about, unfortunately, her quality of life isn't going to be that good. And that stuck with me. It's like, what do you mean? And I'm not one of these people that will post a comment that they disagree with and then like basically yell at somebody.
Right.
Most people come from a good place, and the use of the word unfortunately means that they didn't mean it in a bad way. So I'm not going to beat somebody up over being mistaken. But that stuck with me. It's like, what do you mean? Unfortunately, her life, her quality of life won't be that good. If you look at Hannah and her life, I think she has a really good life. She gets to play. She does online school. Next year, she'll be able to do in person again because we all have our vaccines and things have changed. So she has friends. We travel. She does lots of things. She sees lots of people and places. She's probably seen more of the US than most of the population of the US. So when I hear people or I see people say something about, unfortunately, her quality of life isn't that good, it's like, a lot of people want Hannah's life. She has a great life, and she's a happy, well-adjusted, pleasant, awesome kid, and Jake as well. So they get to see that that's not really true, that their quality of life isn't that good. That, yeah, you know what, I have to change her diapers and I have to feed her. She has a G tube, I have to feed her, and I have to watch out for her having seizures, and I'm constantly looking out for her. That's not a bad quality of life. That's a different quality of life.
Yeah. I think, I'm sure that you've heard this 1,000 times, but I think it takes a really special type of person to do what you're doing. And I think it's incredible to see people that I've seen, connect with you and say, you're great, even if your kids didn't have special needs. Like, you're better than most parents whose children don't have special needs. Or it's just
People are
like,
so nice to me.
and rightfully so. I think you should, it's of course admirable to be humble, but you do so much and you mean so much to your children and you mean so much to the community that you're reaching. So I hope that you will continue to, do your videos. I think you're having way more of an impact probably than you can even see. I'm sure there's so many people that you're helping that don't even comment. So, I think it's really amazing to see what you're doing. And I think, I I think your children, even though they may not be able to express it the way that, they hope that they could, but they're so grateful for you. And I just know that without you, I know that you give them obviously most of the credit for making the strides that they make, but I think when you talked about quality of life, I think that's a big part where you come in, because they may be strong and they may be capable, but without the facilitator, and without the motivation, they wouldn't be where they are. So I hope that how important you are to, your children's lives and the lives of, the people on TikTok that you're reaching and helping.
Oh, thank you. People have just been so sweet. I mean, they're constantly just being so kind to us. I mean, you read and you hear about how horrible TikTok is, that the people are awful, that people are bad, and that, I mean, yeah, we've had horrible. I mean, I can't put enough horribles in that sentence. Comments from people. Absolutely.
Yeah.
99.999% of everybody we run across is just so kind and loving and supportive. And it's just, they make me feel really good. It makes me want to try even harder. I want to live up to this reputation. and it's, I mean, I'm doing the best I can. That's all anybody can do. But the people have just been so kind to us. People send Jake and Hannah gifts, things like therapy items, and Jake gets Batman stuff in the mail and stuff like that. They're just so kind to Jake and Hannah. It's just, I can't thank them enough. They're just such sweet people.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing with me. I learned so much and I am so inspired by what you do. So keep sharing it, and I'll definitely keep following along with your journey.
Thank you very much. And thanks for giving me a chance to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Stay in touch, and, feel free to reach out if you need anything.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.